Wednesday. Beautiful day outside. About a temperate 60 degrees. You're back at Ground Zero Salem with Pat once again. We are listening to Conjureth's Foul Formations demo CDR EP right now in the background. I'm spinning it as penance for giving out misinformation about the personnel involved in this project. It's not a solo thing with just Wayne of Decrepitath and Father Befouled and a bunch of other bands. It's a full band with a bunch of members of Golgotha, which was a previous project of his. So just to clarify that, I don't like giving out bad info, but it happens sometimes. That'll be playing in the background, and then lined up afterwards in the CD changer is a mix that Leo over at Too Much Metal is Barely Enough down in Australia sent me a couple of years ago. He sent me a bunch of awesome mixes, a Brazilian one, Australian one, like local bands to him, and this is just a general mix with some great stuff on it. Italian, Frigid Bitch, Fingernails, Warfare, Metal Lucifer, Witch Trap, Iron Angel, Paul Chain, etc., etc. So that'll be going in the background after this. So I have a tape update for you. I do my updates generally by format for whatever reason, just kind of how it's worked out over the years. And I find that after I'm caught up with doing all three, then CD usually or whatever has piled up and I'm ready to start it all over again. So it's kind of a circle of life sort of thing. I have a ton of tapes here. These are all like kitchen jam box tapes. I recently brought down the really nice Sony boombox that wasn't getting much use up in my bedroom. Brought it into the kitchen. Been pulling out tapes left and right, old ones, got some new ones in, just been, listening to it while I clean and while I cook. It's just something about a good kitchen jam box. I don't know if kids these days understand with their Bluetooth speakers and whatnot, but it's good to have a nice little boom box there, a little bass boost. You got the CD player going, got the tape. I don't know. I just love it. So I got a couple of, I got a big lot in of like stuff I've been wanting. Starting off with this Celtic Frost cassette. This is compiling Morbid Tales and Emperor's Return. I've just wanted this pressing for so long. I have both of these on so many formats. All of them, I think. But there's something about this weird pink logo and that statue on the cover. I don't even need to really talk about the music because we all know Celtic Frost. It's a Noise International pressing from, I don't know, looks like 1988. And as a bonus, they threw in just the cover for To Megatherion. So if anybody has this on cassette with no cover and want to trade something, hit me up. It doesn't even necessarily have to be the combat noise pressing. Like if anybody just has this on tape, non-dub version, an actual pro tape of it without the cover, let me know. Maybe I can trade you something. But yeah, I just thought that would be cool to have. I remember owning this as a kid and like not getting Celtic Frost yet. Like it wasn't for a few years, like maybe late teens, early 20s, that Celtic Frost really clicked for me. And I always regretted flipping that tape as I did back then. And then we got Cold Lake. Cold Lake was included in the lot. I've never owned it. I'm well versed in the song Cherry Orchards, just because that video's hilarious and it's on that one of those hard and heavy video magazines, the thrash metal special, if you're familiar with those, the VHSs. So I know that song. I threw it on and I was like, ugh, yeah, I agree, it's not great. And we even, I think, discussed it on one of the live streams where I think it was Eric or maybe somebody else was talking about how, it's not a good Celtic Frost album, but as far as like a butt rock or glam album, it's good. And I think I vehemently disagreed at the time because I spun this once and was like, this is gross. But the thing about this is Tom G. Warrior only knows how to write riffs a certain way. And it's a very cool way, a very like unique way. Has this, all of his riffs, how he writes riffs, like all those like kind of weird lurching, they have a weird lurching quality, a lot of his riffs. And even though these are gussied up riffs, these riffs are encrusted in sequins and lace, they're still Frost riffs. And you can still kind of taste it underneath all the pomp and circumstance of this record. So it's definitely the worst, but it's an interesting spin, I'll say that. It's kind of just funny to have, I knew I needed a copy, just to round everything out, I think the only one I don't have now on any format is Vanity Nemesis, and I need to revisit that one. Guy from Mindforce, that hardcore band, was saying that record was a big influence on the new Mindforce EP, and I thought that was pretty interesting. Part of the lot, not going to spend a lot of time talking about Creator's Endless Pain. Debut record, fucking ripper, awesome. Flag of Hate bonus EP thrown on there. Just as much of a proto-black kind of thing as early Sodom and Destruction. I don't care who disagrees. Then Extreme Aggression, one that's been kind of grown on me lately. I know this one really well. I mean, I had it as a kid. I always kind of preferred Como Souls, I think, due to like a nostalgic sort of factor. Como Souls I just always went for as far as like Creator, between the two Creator records, you know, just because I grew up listening to Como Souls. It was the first one I got. I got this a little bit later, and something about the production isn't quite as like robust. I feel like it's a little on the flat side, but this album I've been reaching to more and more, even over Como Souls lately. It rips. It's a ripping, precise record. You know, it's a little bit more focused on like songwriting, like succinct songwriting than the records that came before it. Love it. First two Deicides, also part of that. You know, fucking mandatory. Have them on CD. The self-titled debut I have on vinyl as well. Not much to say. I mean, I really feel like Legion is the reign and blood of death metal. It's just so to the point and just condensed evil and hatred. It's perfect, and you can't fuck with the debut either. On Roadrunner, when did these come out? This came out in 90, the first one. 92, my freshman year. Then we've got Wrathchild America, debut, Climbing the Walls, and 3D. 3D was a big one for me as a kid, back in the Headbangers Ball days. I loved Surrounded by Idiots, which was a big single off of here, a big hit. I didn't hear Climbing the Walls till later. I definitely like 3D better. Kind of on the lighter side of thrash, aggressive though. Not altogether straightforward. There's some almost kind of techie twists and turns here and there. Same thing for this one. It's just super light, like really bright recording. About as light as thrash gets before it stops being thrash, but there's enough like of the trappings of like the riff styles and stuff like that to really qualify it as thrash still. Almost kind of Hetfield worshipping vocals. The guy's got enough of his own identity where he's not doing an imitation, but in that kind of register. There's a song on here called Prego. It's an instrumental where they do like every type of music possible, like they do classical and jazz, and so I mean, you know, they know how to play their instruments pretty well. They do a Pink Floyd cover on this. Not a Pink Floyd fan, especially of this era of Floyd. It's that song Time that's like always on the radio and stuff. Syd Barrett era stuff is cool, but not really a big fan of the big hits of Pink Floyd. Just not my thing. Then I got this Hostage demo from Mike Woodford up in Ontario there. Ontario's finest. Hamilton band, Hostage, 2-song demo. The title song, Depths of Disheartenment's like a sludge, punishing sludge number. Really heavy, and Creeping Rot's more of like a crusty punk kind of jam. Really enjoyable and good. Then Indecision, Unorthodox. Saw this in a distro, and I said to myself, what the hell, man? I've seen them numerous times. I've met the members of the band once or twice. I think I rode in their van when like they were touring with Biohazard for some reason, because a friend of mine knew them. Weird, random memory. But Indecision were a hardcore band from Brooklyn. They were a band that I missed out on because I wasn't into a lot of the more metallic chugga chugga stuff later on into the 90s. Earlier 90s, I loved it, and then somewhere around 95 or whatever, I dropped out from paying attention to any of that stuff, and that was when Brothers Keeper and Despair and One King Down and all that shit was blowing up, and this is the first Indecision record, and that falls right in there when I stopped losing interest in this kind of like metallic hardcore stuff. First Indecision full length, Unorthodox. So, and from what I remember listening to Tom's podcast, he was talking about the band as like a bonus episode of Axe to Grind. A bunch of these songs were on different versions, were on 7 inches and demos and what have you. And it's good. Like I really enjoyed this the couple of times I listened to it. I need to put it back up by the jam box up there because for the type of hardcore that they're playing. Like, there's a lot of different tempo changes. Yeah, a lot of it is that kind of mid-tempo moshy stuff, but the riffs are imaginative. It's not all mid-tempo or slow. There's a good amount of fast stuff. There's, I think, a lot more going on in terms of, like, influence than a lot of their peers at the time. And, yeah, fucking great blistering vocals, courtesy of Tom. Then I got this Mordicus, Dances from the Left. This is a reissue of this Finnish band on cassette. It's a Brutal Infection release. The one thing I don't like about this label is they have, like, the tabs still in. So if you're fucking around and not paying attention, you can accidentally tape over part of your tape, which happened to me with an ectoplasma tape, which was a bummer. But anyway, Finnish band. Another Finnish band that kind of sounds more Swedish than they do Finnish. Came out a long time ago. Came out in 91, so it's, you know, 90s death metal. One interesting thing to note is there's a Jani Ritkonen on guitars and vocals, so maybe Marty's distant cousin. A lot of it's very, as far as the fast parts, the more upbeat parts, it's definitely right in that pocket with all that Sunlight Studios kind of Swedish DM stuff, you know, that kind, the punkish drumming, the riff style, it's right on there. The slow parts I feel like are pretty outside of the pack, pretty imaginative. You know, there's elements of, like, kind of rockish stuff in there, like hard rockish kind of things in there, some doom. They really kind of, like, paint a lot of different pictures with their slower parts, but the fast breaks definitely sound just like straight up Swedish death metal stuff, and there's nothing wrong with that. Then we got Motorhead's The Birthday Party. Live record, there's a video of it too. Pretty well done, like, professionally shot live concert video. Motorhead's 10th anniversary. A lot of Orgasmatron stuff on this before Orgasmatron even came out. Mean Machines on it. You know, of course you got Ace of Spades. Chase is Better Than the Catch. Nothing Up My Sleeve. Underrated jam from Orgasmatron. This was an Enigma Records release. So originally a concert video. I think it got released as a audio release, a live record a little while later. I remember seeing it all the time on the shelf in stores and just being like, something really disturbed me about the chain coming out of the cake. I don't know why that was. Like, you could really break your teeth on that if you weren't careful. Got a Jay Reatard, Blood Visions. Yeah, just like killer garage punk stuff from Memphis. This dude passed away, I think in 2005 or 2006. Little known fact, this dude was in Evil Army for a while, that thrash band from down there. But yeah, just dark, you know, minimalist garage punk. You know, if you like the Carbonas and, of course, the Ramones and stuff like that, this isn't too far off. His full band, the Reatards, that were around for a while before this came out, were similar and really good. I think they were a little bit faster. This is a little bit more like rock and roll, but yeah, R.I.P. Jay Reatard. Speaking of the Ramones, it's been a lot of Ramones discussion lately amongst my friends, talking about missing covers and whatnot. This is Loco Live. This is the first Ramones record that I ever owned. You know, if you're into faster or more aggressive music and you're looking for an inroad into maybe checking out some Ramones, think about picking this up or giving it a listen or whatever on streaming, whatever your deal is. This is recorded live in Spain after, I think, Brain Drain came out, so like late 89 or 90, something like that. All the more overproduced songs, like end of the century songs and like the bigger like radio hits on this, are played real fast and stripped down. All their like poppy surf, like bubblegum kind of jams are played at 2 or 3 times the speed, and it's just like a good, like, way thrashier version of the Ramones. There's a ton of songs on it, and it's awesome. I listened to this into the ground in high school, just over and over and over again. There's like 30-something songs on this. Liner notes by Blondie. Debbie Harry shares a little history, which is pretty interesting. Good shit. Loco Live. Armored Saint. Symbol of Salvation. This came out when I was in high school. I owned this back in the day. Getting reacquainted with it. I love John Bush's vocals for Armored Saint. I'm starting to warm up to him more as the second, third, rather, Anthrax vocalist. I know, some people that's sacrilege, but whatever. But when he was the singer in Armored Saint, I mean, he sang a little bit different. He still had those kind of smoky, kind of soulful, almost kind of bluesy vocals. And this is just a great, powerful, just straight up early 90s metal record before the grunge thing really took hold. It's not thrash, it's not glam, it's heavy. There's a bunch of songs on I could do without. It's long, man. God damn, there's like 14 songs on this or something, and they're, it's not like we're talking about a power violence record here. There's some long-ass songs. But there's some real burners on it. I mean, Rain of Fire, there's a video for that. I think they're playing that in Hellraiser 3, perhaps when the CD had Cenobite is chasing people around, I don't remember. The title track's really good. The song Warzone's really good. Burning Question, I remember being pretty good. But there's songs like Tribal Dance that are a little bit too, like, I don't even know, like, just kind of butt rocky, sound like Saigon Kick or something like that. Maybe they don't, I don't know. I haven't listened to Saigon Kick in a long time. I don't know if I ever really did, actually. Yeah, Armored Saint, Symbol of Salvation. Anyway, good shit. Gonna be exploring through the back catalog a little bit. I used to have March of the Saint. Never really did anything for me at the time, but I bought that cheap recently. It's en route to the house. Infamous Sinphony. Thrash metal, crossover kind of stuff from Southern Cali. Another one I used to own, flipped years ago. I think I found the LP at, the Record Archive in Rochester, New York, where I made a lot of good scores. You'll see these Wild Rags tapes pop up on eBay from time to time. Sometimes they're reasonable. There's so much dead stock of this stuff that, I don't know, Richard C. pressed too many copies of, just sitting around. Some of it's good, some of it's mediocre, a little bit of it's really bad. I knew that this was decent. It sounds kind of right in the middle between, like, I'd say The Accused and Cryptic Slaughter. If you dig any of those bands, the vocals are not too far off from Blaine's, not as good, of course, but it's got that kind of scratchy sort of high to mid-pitched register going on. Got a lot of the speed that maybe Cryptic Slaughter would throw at you, not quite as fast. Overall, like, if you're craving some crossover you haven't heard, the more kind of vicious leaning sort of crossover stuff, I'd check this out. Deceased, Fearless Undead Machines. I talked about Blueprints of Madness, Blueprints for Madness, last updates. This is when they really got really cogent, I think, with their songwriting, pulled everything together, got really good, like, just ebb and flow of how the riffs should go and everything. The vocals were tamed down a little bit, not quite as growly, a little bit more decipherable, but yeah, just the beginning of Deceased being really great at telling a story with their albums, with this kind of traditional metal and death metal fused together kind of formula. We got Lord Gore, Scalpels for Blind Surgeons. I've been hearing about these guys for a long time. They're part of that Pacific Northwest kind of gore grind, thrash inspired kind of scene. Blood Freak, these guys, Engorged, of course, that whole thing. Been around for quite a while. Drop this, hold on. It's just a little head split flyer that came with it. Got a nice kind of green shell there, like pills and razor blades and shit on it. It's cool. It's not doing a straight up gore grind thing. They do the extremely low pitch shifted, like gurgly vocals throughout, and that's kind of the one thing that's sort of the one string that kind of weaves throughout everything. It's got a lot of elements of thrash, a lot of elements of even some kind of crusty stuff, some doom thrown in there, and of course your straight up kind of carcass worship as well. Good catchy record. Then I got Laaz Rockit, Annihilation Principle. I've been meaning to pick this up for a while. I remember the video from Fire in the Hole from back in the day. I did forget that the guy from Fire in the Hole, the guy that's playing the Laaz Rockit, like, mascot dude, the Marine or whatever he's supposed to be, is WCW's Sting, if you're a wrestling fan. Interesting fact. I completely didn't know that. A friend of mine reminded me of that, just talking over Instant Messenger on Instagram. And I was like, oh my god, that is fucking Sting. Holy shit. I didn't know. Laaz Rockit, it's an interesting case with Laaz Rockit, I feel like, because I Don't know a shit ton about them. I remember hearing about them, you know, seeing that video, you know, them just being kind of an also-ran kind of name for Bay Area thrash, but kind of like Hyrax in LA, they kind of predated a lot of the bigger names, like playing metal, you know, as far back as like 82, 83, and they were doing more of a traditional metal or power metal kind of thing and kind of evolved into a thrash band later on. I think the one record before this is when they started to really go thrash, and this they kind of perfected it or honed it down a bunch, because it's a great fucking thrash record with like kind of punishing, sort of high-pitched kind of sung vocals. Like I'd heard people call them the Anthrax of the West Coast. I don't know if I agree with that, but I can see where people are coming from. It's good. There's a cover of Holiday in Cambodia that, if you really want to hear a super metaled out cover of Holiday in Cambodia by the Dead Kennedys, that's exactly what it is. I'm not sure how I feel about it yet. The only thing that's kind of a detractor for me on this is there's like a really long ballad at the end, and it just kind of drags and doesn't do anything for me. But the rest of the songs on this are awesome. Sounds kind of loud. Let me turn this down. All right. Dramelech, Spring of Recovery. Another Brutal Infection reissue. Bootleg? I don't know. Just a 2-song EP. Well, there's an intro too. 3 tracks, about 10 minutes. Great classic finish. Deep, dark, foreboding, melancholic death metal. Dramelech is mandatory finish stuff. Then I got In Death of Steve Sylvester, the first Death SS record. A lot of this stuff is new to me. Heard a lot of people talking about Death SS and how influential they were. I know they go back to the 70s. All the stuff they wrote with Paul Chain was pretty special for its time. This is after that dude left, the guitarist, Paul Chain. However, about half the material on here was written by him, maybe more. There's some interesting covers. They do I Love the Dead by Alice Cooper, Come to the Sabbath by Black Widow. There's some songs on here that are almost like proto-speed metal or thrash, like the song Werewolf, the last song on the first side. There's some songs that are almost like gloomy, atmospheric butt rock. I don't know however else to place it. Steve Sylvester's vocals are also like really hard for me to place. It was driving me up a wall what they reminded me of. You know, they're kind of screechy, and they have like weird effects, and they're doubled up in parts and like reverbed out, and they're definitely very metal. And I decided that like early Running Wild vocals were like the closest basis for comparison that I could think of. But it's really good, man. Nothing quite like it. You know, I can see why a lot of the other Italian doom bands and even stuff outside of that, like Acid Witch, you know, and Abysmal Grief and all that, kind of gets a lot of influence from this stuff. It was definitely trailblazing shit for sure. Part of that whole order that I picked up the infamous Sinphony from the Wild Rags thing, I got this Arcane. This was not a blind buy. I mean, I usually preview stuff, especially if it's Wild Rags, because you never quite know what you're going to get. But I liked this enough to pick it up for a couple of bucks. This band was from Texas. They played kind of progressive thrash speed kind of stuff with like, you know, melodic soaring metal vocals. It's good. Nothing to super write home about. My main complaint is, and I notice this more with like punk and hardcore bands, is the vocalist like adheres to and sticks to the riffs too much, like sings along to every single part, and it gets a little tedious. You know, you want to maybe go with like the rhythm of the rhythm section a little bit more or something, you know? I don't know. But that was the one thing. It's just like, it just like every single riff, like every single up and down, peak and valley from all the riffs, he's like glued to it, and it kind of drove me nuts after a while. But the vocal style, I mean, guy can sing, the riffs are good, just slightly proggy, slightly kind of techy, imaginative kind of stuff. They don't go quite as far as their state mates in like Watchtower or whatever, but it's a cool listen. Arcane, Destination Unknown. Ruby, 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 Ruby Soho. Just kidding. Just Destination Unknown. Catharsis, Samsara. This was a big one for me. Late 90s. This came out in 97 originally. I always kind of thought it was a couple years later, but I saw these guys in Rochester, New York with Integrity. one of the most terrifying gigs I've ever been to. It was these guys, Integrity, and 2 Troy core bands, Burning Human and Dying Breed. Tons of Nazi skinheads came out. Kind of just hung out drinking in the bar in the basement. It was like in a VFW hall till Integrity came on, and then proceeded to start fights with everybody. Just a brawl breaking out every song during Integrity. And these guys opened, and at the time their singer was kind of a little dude, really pissed off. His name's Brian. Normal looking guy, just white t-shirt, sarcastic kind of front man. You know, there's different types of kids there. There's hardcore kids, skins, punks, whatever. And he's like, yeah, it's good to see, you know, a good cross-section of people here. If this was 1989, I'd be talking about all that unity bullshit, but it's not. So, you know, they're an angry, pissed-off band, metallic hardcore with, like, some crust influences here and there. And super good. They sounded almost like a straight-up crust band live. And I'm not sure why exactly, because I heard their records after that. There's a compilation of stuff before this that's all demos and 7 inches and EPs and everything. And that's the best stuff they ever recorded, in my opinion. This is good. I mean, the first song in here is just this white-hot fucking trem-picked, like, I wouldn't say mellow death, but kind of close. Like, almost like, just like, slightly melodic death metal style riff on it, and it just fucking blows your ass out, like, right out of the gate. And then they kind of slow it down on Choose Your Heaven. That song, going back to it's a little bit on the repetitive side, but this is a band that was, you know, political, came from the hardcore scene. You know, we're kind of like roots metalcore or proto metalcore before metalcore like really solidified into a genre. They were buddies with bands like Gehenna, the hardcore Gehenna, and Integrity, kind of rabble rousers, super political. And as they went on, I saw them a few years later with Converge at a warehouse, and their singer had like hair as long as mine and was kind of swaying back and forth, and there was this real like Manson vibe. I don't know how to explain it. There are all these kids like in black Carhartts kind of hugging and falling all over the place, and he was talking about how you had to feel beautiful, and it just kind of weirded me out. I still love their lyrics. Their lyrics are fantastic. Very like biblical and like apocalyptic, but relating to, you know, the horrors of capitalism and shit like that. It was very of its time, you know, but musically this is still a shredder, and I love it. And sorry for babbling for so long, but I got a lot of memories about it. Then I got Vital Remains, Dechristianize. This is one of the ones with Glenn Benton singing. This is some kind of weird bootleg, as evidenced by, maybe not bootleg, but, you know, possibly Polish version or whatever. It's got that holographic sticker. That's usually an indicator. It's like a weird sticker on top. Usually an indicator that it's some odd overseas version of it. I don't even remember where I ordered this from, to be honest. It says Piracy Kills Music on it, so maybe it's not a bootleg. At any rate, this is a slapper of a record. Possibly the most brutal Vital Remains. You know, it's got a little bit of a tuned-up snare. Real fucking punishing. Say what you will about Glenn Benton, but man, he knocks it out of the park on this one. Just fucking, I mean, Dave Suzuki's destroying on it as a guitarist, but there's less atmosphere on it on this one, and more just like ripping your eyeballs out, you know, with a pickle fork. It's fucking rad. Next up, we got Paranoia, The Many Faces Of. This is an Alchemy Records band. That's why I bought this. Can't remember if they're on the Alchemy comp that I have or not. I believe they are. Kept a little sticker here. Came sealed. Other Alchemy Records bands include Neurosis early on, Poison Idea, the Melvins. Those are all the big ones. Sacrilege BC, also pretty noteworthy. And then it gets weird. Clown Alley. I can't even remember what they sound like, but they're called Clown Alley. RKL was on there too, which is a great band. So there's a lot of metal and punk and everything in between on that label. They were like a Northern California label in the late 80s. So I figured I'd pick this up. You know, probably an also ran. Definitely not going to be as good as early Neurosis or Poison Idea, but I want to hear it. And it's good. It does actually have that kind of Oakland early Neurosis when they still played hardcore, or like Christ on Parade kind of thing going on, but merged with a little bit of thrash metal. So it's sort of like that style, that kind of weird, gloomy, All those bands were like had that kind of noodly bass thing, and these guys kind of had that too, but more of like a thrash metal thing woven in with that kind of Oakland gloomy hardcore kind of vibe. Cool shit. Really cool cover art too. I like that a lot. And well, I already talked about this plenty, but I'll show it off again. Death is Just the Beginning 3. Played at the last update. Also part of a bunch of the shit that I bought lately. And then Flesh Rot. Friend Justin sent this to me. It's cool. It's like a single. I haven't seen one of these in a while. Not a new one anyway. Green tape, green shell. It looks like a VHS. You know, it's got the VHS thing there. Obviously going for a thing. You know, got the kind of the exploitation horror cover there. It's got a butt. It's machete. Kind of reminds me of Spinal Tap, where they're talking about like, wait, why is our competitor's record album not offensive? Oh, because she's tying him down. He's not torturing a woman. It's the other way, so it's empowering. Like she's got a machete and a butt. Anyway, it's death metal. It's good. You know, all of the era knuckle dragging, caveman death metal. You know, it would fit right along with a lot of the stuff on Maggot Stomp. It reminds me of quite a bit of Ruin. You know, Autopsy, of course, that kind of shit. Only 2 songs. There's an intro and an outro. I do really enjoy the intro. It's like a minute, almost 2 minute long, sort of giallo, kind of soundtracky kind of intro kicking it off. Yeah, it's good. Current day, like Meat and Potatoes, kind of horror inspired, mid-paced death metal stuff. Well, I managed to get through that, so that's a thing. Yeah, another live stream this Friday. I'm sure I'll see everybody. Talk to you fine folks. Thank you for your support. Thank you for subscribing. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. If you want to get every update, hit the bell. How professional YouTuber of me to ask you to do these things. It's crazy. I've done a bunch of, by the way, since I have you here, and I'm John at you, I've done a bunch of like restructuring to my my little basement dwelling here. So I think I'm gonna do an updated tour of Ground Zero Salem too, because I think about it, and the last one I did, things were completely different down here. I think that'd be fun. So I'm gonna do that soon. I'm saying this aloud so I hold myself to actually following through on something for the first time in my entire life. Yeah, I don't know. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.